morning, Suzuki community. It's Myron at Zuk's Off-Road. Today we're going to do something really special, and that's a MYSide1 install. Been selling this product since 2005. It's really popular. I sell it as won't stall at any angle. So it works for the people that are going to be at odd angles. It also works for the people that want to have high performance engines because it's very tunable. It has some very unique features in the Harley Davidson carburetor. It can adjust for elevation and a few other things I'll get into later as we talk about it. Now, I'm not going to talk to you much about taking out the air filter. We already did that. Of course, the top of the carburetor. We've already removed the stock carburetor, and we've removed all of the peripherals. And so we're going to pick this up with, I have the block installed. Now you're going to see a picture inserted right about here that shows you how to file the edges off of the holes, because a lot of people tighten those bolts or studs too hard, and that pulls the aluminum up on the intake manifold, and we want to have a nice flat surface. And so what I do is I stuff tissue paper in the holes, and then I take a file and I file the top of the holes there before I put copper spray on the gasket. And it's very obvious which way the gasket goes. I own the die for some of the Suzuki gaskets. And so you're going to put your small primary and your big secondary, you're going to put those correct. And then you're going to put the block down, and you're going to tighten it up with the 4 Allens that are provided in the kit. Now you've got 2 hoses here. The one in the back is very long. It's going to go down to the left of the radiator hose. And this one that's pointing at the firewall is going to go right back here on this nipple that is at the back of the intake, right behind your heater hose coming from your heater valve. And this is so that this block heats up, because Harleys love hot air. They just love it. The best times that I've had is running Harley across the desert when it's super hot. They just really have nice explosions, and just put it that way, they love the heat. They hate the cold. They're cold-blooded, and so once you get them warmed up, they really outperform pretty much everything that's out there for most of the people. And what I mean by that is there's other carbs out there that you can spend a lot of time with tuning them. It's very easy to tune in a Harley carb to whatever engine you have. It'll run about 150 horsepower without boost. It can flow that much fuel. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take 2 plates out of the kit. You're going to paint them, of course. And this is the first plate, and I always try to say is there's a little hoop right here, and what that's for is to go over the brake booster hose. Now you may have to move your clamp on the brake booster hose, and by the way, a real quick little comment on that. Inside these brake booster hoses, there's one-way valves. So if you start playing around and replacing the brake hoses, you might not have brakes. So you're going to get 4 Allens inside the kit, and what we're going to do is get these Allens tightened on. I have made my kit where you can leave the EGR valve on and work around it. Now there is, on a stock Samurai, there is a water valve that is right down here, and it sticks out sometimes pretty far where you're not able to get the plate on. And what you're going to do in that case is just take a wrench and hit that orange plastic, and it will break clean off. And then it'll be like a water plug, because we like to have these engine compartments kind of clean, so we don't want to have a lot of extra stuff in there. Now some of you are going to have more vacuum ports than others, and what we like to do is we'll run a hose. When we've got 2 vacuum ports, we'll run a hose from one port to another. That works so much better than what's called a vacuum cap. A vacuum cap typically comes from a foreign country, Far East, and they don't know how to make rubber over there, and so they get dry and cracked, and then they'll blow off. And so the best thing to do when you have 2 vacuum ports is to put a hose between them. Now what do you do when you got that last vacuum port? Well, just get yourself a couple of inches of hose, put a screw in it. That will never ever come off, blow off, or anything like that. Okay, so that's our first plate. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our adapter. This particular carb we're going to be using is a 44 millimeter. You can tell the 44s because they're bigger out here, they drop down. I made my kits so you can run a 40 millimeter carb or a 44. This is a really good point to tell you that you really need to stay away from eBay on new 40 millimeter carbs, because Harley discontinued the 40 millimeter carb. You must read your ads very carefully these days, because eBay, or China Bay as they like to call them, India Bay now, they will say things like genuine OEM Harley Davidson fits. And what they're saying is, we made a carburetor that's not like a Harley Davidson, but it fits. So try to stay away from that stuff. Stick with your genuine. And how can you tell? It has the name Harley Davidson on the carburetor. It has the barn shield. If it doesn't have that, don't bother trying to work with it. I spit on these a little bit on this green O-ring. This is a chemical O-ring. We've been using thousands and thousands of these since we put this kit together. And this is a push-in right there. And that is going to give us a nice airtight seal for when we put the carburetor on. Alright, next thing we're going to do is find my box here. It's got my parts. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is put in the clamping rods. Now the clamping rods have got an acorn nut on one side for the finished plate out here. And what I like to do is, and then you can see here they're all set up for you. What I like to do is just kind of get them in there loose, and I like to have the lock washers on the inside, not the outside. That way they don't get lost as easily. And so as you can see there, it's easy to set those up. And there's going to be 3 of these, and they're going to be long enough for you to do what you need to do. Alrighty, and one more here. So I have all 3 of these with the acorn facing out, and I have the lock washers on the inside of the plate towards me. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive in these back nuts here pretty easily. So when I take the acorn nuts off, that stuff stays back a little bit further. Alright, so now I have the 3 acorn nuts off. This system has worked really well for us. It's really proven itself over the years. We've done a few little changes to it, but I really like this system. So now what we're going to do is very detailed. So we're going to change to the angle so that you can see what we're going to do. So let's put the gaskets on the carb and then the last plate, and then we're going to put all of that in together at once. So let's get to that. Okay, so we just want to point out to you that we now have to put these labels on here because we tell people, but sometimes the best way to keep a secret is to put it in print. So what that says right there is to peel off the white paper, because this is a sticky gasket. So the first thing I want you to do is lay the carb down where you can see the face of the carburetor. Now a couple of things I want to talk about. You've got 4 holes on the face of the carburetor. This hole is not threaded. This hole is the breathing hole, and as you can see there's a wormhole here, then there's a cap because they had a machine inside of it. Then it comes around to this side and it goes down into the float ball. And so this is how Harley Davidson knows the elevation, because there's a vacuum discrepancy between here, the face, and the slide. And so as you see, it changes the bore. When you go farther up, you have thinner air, the bore opens up more. When you're at sea level, you have thicker air, the bore knows that, and the bore stays smaller. So what we need to do is first is to get this gasket on there. So what we've got to do is find the pattern. Once we find the pattern, which I just found it, we're going to take the gasket and peel it off, and we're going to stick it on there where we can get through all of the holes to bolt that on. Now, once I have that on, I'm going to peel this white piece of paper off. And now I'm going to take my plate, and it has the same pattern. So I'm going to put the plate right over those same holes, and then I'm going to take my second gasket. What does this say? Oh, it says peel off the white sticker. So again, I'm going to find the pattern, And I don't want to shame anybody, but it always amazes me when people send me pictures and say, we can't figure out the whole pattern. And it's just, usually I got to show them. But so same thing, we'll just find that pattern, peel off that particular gasket. Now we're going to do the same thing again and put on what we call the air ring. This is one of the major changes from what I invented on this kit compared to the way it was, the idea was first brought to me from a fellow by the name of Phil Randolph. Phil Randolph is quite an inventor. He's got quite a few inventions out there. So basically this is what I call an air ring. Now what I've done here is I've given it a breathing tube so that it can come through here. Watch. See, I can breathe. It's going to go through the breathing hole. So through this hole here, this carburetor is going to know what the elevation is. Now again, I have to match the holes. So we're just going to lay that there on. We're going to lay that up there gently, and we're going to provide you with 3 Allens. And those Allens are going to drop into the holes here. Now, you will see from time to time different air rings. That's because we use the air rings for boosting also. Hard to keep track of my tools. Alright, so we're going to get all 3 of these Allens threaded. I tighten them evenly. I don't tighten one and then go, tighten the next one. I go a little bit around, keep everything nice and level. And then when I've got them all close, I'm going to go ahead and tighten them. So it's going to make a nice airtight seal. And we're going to follow it up with what we call rubber rope. So we're going to take and make sure all 3 of these are snug. And then we're going to take the rubber ropes and we're going to shove them right down those holes. And this is going to give us a really nice airtight seal, dust tight seal for when we put the filter on. Now what I like to do at this point is take some black tape, what we like to call electrician's tape, and I can go on the air ring. I only need to go around once, get a nice little cut right there with the razor blade. Keep that nice and flat. Alright, now I'm going to take the razor blade and I'm just going to shave off flush. Make sure you discard those. And as you can see there, now I have a really nice airtight seal. Alright, let's go ahead and put this on. So here we go. Now, spit's not a bad lubricant. Didn't mean to spit on myself. So I'm going to be pushing this into the intake boot while I line up the 3 holes for the plate. It's not that complicated. I know I make it sound complicated, but it's not. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to get this ready to go in. And we're just going to put each rod in each hole. And push it in. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to take the acorn nuts because they're the fancy part. We're going to put those on the outside of this rod. We're just going to put those on by hand all the way on. Now these are 7/16, with a lot of you know that's also 11 millimeters, so you can use either an 11 millimeter wrench or a 7/16 inch wrench. So I've just put those on by hand. Now the next step is to get the back of these tight. So this is where you're going to need to get 2 wrenches and tighten those. And now what I can do is take up all the slack in the back. So as you can see there, I've got that all compressed in. And I'm going to tighten this one now, and then this one. This clamping system is very strong, and these are 3/16 inch cold rolled plates that are laser cut up in the steel belt in Minnesota. Company I've been working with for almost 2 decades now. Really good company. And then what we're going to do is back those to those right there. And as you can see there, I have a really solid system. Now I'm not going to get the wrenches right now and tighten them up so that we can keep going. We have a little time constraint today. I've already installed the pressure regulator. I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Harley 12-804. They've dominated the market for this kind of adjustable pressure regulator. Now companies that have come out in the past, like Quick Fuel Technologies, they were making a very similar unit, so Harley didn't like that, so they bought the company. And this particular one here is made for Earl's Racing, but it's also comes out of the Harley factory or the Quick Fuel Technology because they're so close together. I prefer that we get an American-made regulator. These are lasting so long compared to the Chinese. How can I tell the difference? The Chinese is a dial that goes 1 to 5. This has an adjusting rod, and we like to set that rod in almost all applications to 8 threads out. Now I've set this one up. You have already, you haven't seen it, but you're going to get all the parts to do this. Now this is the in. It says in right here, and we have to step this down because the Suzuki Samurai fuel hose is very small, and it's going to be the port that's pointing at the radiator. Many of you know that there is a 4th port in the back here on a mechanical fuel pump, and this is your failure indicator tube, also works as a vent. And basically you touch it once in a while and you make sure there's no oil or gas, because if there is, that means that the rubber diaphragm has failed inside the fuel pump, and you need to replace this because you can easily mix gasoline in your oil, which is really bad for the engine. Now this is going to come with a plug. And then what we also have in our bag, parts bag I should say, is the fuel bag. Now, the fuel bag has a fuel filter, and this fuel filter is directional. So we're going to install the fuel filter on the port coming out of the pressure regulator, but this is something I really need to explain to you because it does say to carb. What we don't want to do is have the fuel pump out uphill and then come down. We want this to be really close to the carburetor because the fuel has to go through the paper. So when you have it like this, it really doesn't work as well as when you have it like this. So now the fuel is going to come out very easily. When this is working correctly, you're going to see air inside this filter. This is why we use this filter, why it's clear, it doesn't have any pressure going into it, and it's very inexpensive. We buy these from O'Reilly, so when you get dirty in here, you can buy another one in 10 years from now. But again, you want to have it as close to the carburetor as you can, and when we send you all the hose and the clamps, well, we send it to you can cut it, because we're not going to give you everything where it's exactly the same, too short, so we're going to give you a little extra so you can do what you want. So out of this one piece here, we have to cut this, and again, I want to get this as close as I can to here so you can see if I cut it there, I'm going to get what I want. So we're going to go ahead and cut that right now. There we go. So as you can see, I'm going to be able to get that really close to the carburetor, and the fuel's going to come out nice and easy, come into here and go down to the carburetor. And again, we give you all the clamps for that. The next thing that we want to talk about is where we're going to get the vacuum, and we're going to come off of one of the 2 ports right in front of the billet block. Now a lot of you don't like the idea of using full vacuum for your distributor. We have found it to work really, really well, and by the way, we give you more hose so that you can put in the correct length hose. So we do full vacuum. It's worked really well for us. There are other methods out there. You can contact RJ Mowry and see if he's could fix your distributor We like the distributor with the vacuum line when you're not turboing. When you are turboing, we cannot use the vacuum line, but please be aware that you don't even need this, because the first thing you want to do when you're this far is you want to take this hose and you want to see if you can suck through it. And I cannot, which means that the rubber diaphragm is good. And so we can use the vacuum advance on this particular distributor. Now to finish this one's important, we have another part in the bag that's going to come with every kit. Of course, the choke cable. We got to install the choke cable still. But this right here, this is key little part. It does not go in the engine compartment. This is going to go back in front of the passenger rear tire. Alongside the frame, you've got the small metal line. Now the small metal line is your return line from the mechanical carburetor. As the metal line goes back to the tank, it will turn into rubber, then there'll be a plastic valve, then there will be rubber, and then it's going to go to the tank. What we want you to do is pull that out and put this in between the metal and the metal. Get rid of the old rubber, the plastic check valve, and the rubber with this little kit right here, and there are instructions in the bag to tell you how to do that. To do the choke cable, back in the day, 2005, we would make all of our customers build their own choke cables. We do that for you now. We find it to be a lot easier for you. So let me show you how to take the choke cable apart. You pull the spring, you take off the enricher valve, you take the spring off, you put these where you cannot lose them, and then you just hold on to the elbow and pull the cable out. Now this is going to give us the ability to go through holes to get this up to the engine compartment. On the choke knob, there is a nut and a star washer. So you're going to remove those, and you're going to pick a place. This will reach, I like these on the left of the steering wheel, and the reason why I like them on the left of the steering wheel is so that I can pull it and I can use the key with my left hand. I want to show you that this is a friction knob right here that spins. I'm actually going to take that off to show you that it's a separate piece right there. As I tighten this, this is going to stop this from moving. So if you are pulling this out and then you let go and the spring pulls it back, all you need to do is tighten this. And now this, ooh, it's a lot tougher. And now the spring won't pull it back. That's not a very tough spring, but this cable is very easy to move this cable in and out. Now, some of my installers here over the years have recommended, and I do like this sometimes, is to put a washer behind this so that you can get to this easier, because once you put this on the dash, it's really flush and it's hard to get to it. And if you have this too tight to begin with, you're going to be having too tight of a choke. So what you want to do is adjust this so it stays out but pushes back in easy enough, and that'll give you some adjustment in the future so you can make these last a long time. I literally have these out there for 19 years working just fine. I mean, I've got thousands of these kits out here, and we might sell 2 or 3 choke cables a year to the people way back when, because maybe they pulled too hard. So let's talk about that pulling too hard. On a Harley Davidson carburetor, they don't have a choke, they have an enricher. There's a little rubber, let's call it what it is, it's kind of an O-ring, and it goes into a hole in the carburetor. So when the spring pushes it, it keeps fuel in a chamber. When you pull it back a little bit, the fuel starts flowing from the chamber. It doesn't make any difference if it's a little out or a lot out, it's the same flow. There is no eighth choke, quarter choke, half choke. It's on or off. It's that simple. And so when it's pushed in, it's not flowing any fuel. When you pull it out, it's flowing some fuel. And that's about where you want to have it. That'll compress the spring and pull that out. The nose will still, the snout will still be in the hole for guiding. So that's about where the choke is at when it's on, and that's when it's off. It actually starts to shut off, but that's because the spring pressure has to push it to seal it. So if you have it out a little bit and you're collapsing your spring, you might still have it on. So that's off and that is on. Some people think that if they pull it really hard, they will get it to get more fuel. It doesn't happen that way, but what happens is they do break it off, and that causes a problem where you got to buy another one. So don't pull these too hard, okay? And that's how you're going to do your choke. Now what I like to do is, again, on the left of the steering wheel, right on the right of the brake booster over there, on most Samurais, there's a little rubber grommet. Usually nothing's there. Sometimes wires if you're running lights or something. So I'll just poke a screwdriver through that. So what do I do to put this on? I have to drill through the dash. As soon as I drill through the dash, I've got to put on first the star washer, then the nut. Alright, then I'm going to take the end of this. There we go, we're going to tighten it on the dash right now. Alright, so then I got to take the end of this through the firewall. Now I have it in my hand. First thing I do is I take the elbow, I push this through. Then I'm going to take the spring, put the spring on, and I'm going to pull the spring back, put the captive ball in the hole, and voila. Now, where does this go? On the back of the carburetor, right here where you see my finger, right, go ahead, where? Right here, right there. This goes in, and it's a threaded hole. Now, this is a 14 millimeter, but it's a plastic nut, and this is all new when you get it, so it's kind of sticky because it's brand new. So if you want to make that spin easier, what you can do is pull this plastic nut out of the rubber elbow, and by the way, you'll see there's a metal elbow in there. We use all Harley parts for this. So then you can spin that really easily. You just need to get this snug. This has to be in to run the Harley, because if you don't have this in, you're going to be pouring fuel into your carburetor and you're going to have a major intake leak. So don't even try to start it without this choke cable being in there. Okay, last thing, throttle cable. When you get a Harley Davidson carburetor from us, we made it so that you can put in a stock Suzuki Samurai, what do we call this, throttle cable. So you have to take the bottom nut off, you have to put the cable in, you bring the bottom nut back up. This is a really good time to tell you where the idle screw is on this. The idle screw's right here. Now, as you know, this is adjustable. You can make this go up and down. But one of the things that the Samurais have had a problem with forever is that we all try to go faster by pushing the gas pedal harder. And what happens? We bend the gas pedal rod. Now, what I want to show you is that we have drilled a hole in the carburetor cam for this great big cable stop. Back in the day when we started these, we would make you cut the cable. Well, my friend at Petroworks, Gary Monk, who at one time had a kit similar to this, he told me, oh, we just drill the cams. So I started doing that. And what I found out is that you get slack, quite a bit of slack, and that's because of the bent pedal. And so if you have slack in your throttle cable and you cannot adjust it out here, I want you to go grab the bottom of the gas pedal, pull it back, and then adjust the stop nut. Now, I remember being at a off-road party once, and a fellow was complaining about his Samurai and that the butterflies wouldn't open up enough on his Weber carburetor. And I looked at it and saw what was happening is that he would step on the gas pedal, but the stop wouldn't come all the way up. And so I told him to turn around, and I fixed it really quick for him by bending the gas pedal, readjusting it, getting the slack out, and then he could rev his car because now the cable pulled all the way. So just like other carburetors, there is a stop, and you can see as I rotate this cam, the stop is right here. So once I get this in and I have just a little bit of slack, I want someone to step on the gas pedal and make sure I can open the butterfly all the way. So again, the butterfly is going to rotate until it hits that stop right there. that is wide open throttle. I don't want the gas pedal to hit the floor and it's still got a long way for that butterfly to open. That's something you have to check. So we're going to wrap this one up by taking the last thing out of the box, which is your air filter. This is not a factory battery, so sometimes we have to sell the customer an elbow to put the filter in a different location. Sometimes we have to put the filter here, but in most applications this filter is going to fit, and on this one I just have to move the battery back. I can see I've got a gap here, so I'll be able to clear this no problem and put this filter on. The thing that's the most important for me to tell you is you must leave this open so that the carburetor knows the elevation. So if you plug this off, what's going to happen? The carb is lost and it's going to go boom when you step on the gas. So if you get a boom, most likely this is either capped off or connected to something it shouldn't be. So here I want to say thank you very much for watching our videos. I'm not going to be showing you how to tune this. That's only for my customers, and I know that there's copycat companies out there that have similar products and they don't know how to tune it, they don't know how to take care of their customers. So my customers call me and we're going to tell you how to tune this to get the most performance out of your 1.3s and your 1.6s. Thank you very much for watching our videos. Please subscribe. Be safe. Go have fun. Go wheeling. And thank you, Suzuki community. Got a big announcement coming up for you, so we'll be talking about that soon. Bye.